But before that, I will recall the Lesson 6 topic, which is quantitative research problem. So what is quantitative research problem? Quantitative research problem contain ideas approximating your thoughts and feelings about the term problem.
Before we start our discussion, here are the intended learning outcomes. After this lesson, you should be able to widen your English vocabulary, express using newly learned words, define hypotheses, differentiate hypothesis from research question, classify hypotheses based on a set of standards, evaluate the quality of hypothesis, formulate hypotheses based on a set of guidelines, and last, explain the relationship of hypotheses with the research problem and research question.
Let's start our discussion. What is a hypothesis? So, hypothesis is a tentative explanation or an answer to a question about variable, the relationship and other facts involved in the research. A research always ends up with a result. However, you are free to hypothesize, meaning to infer, propose, or guess about factual things related to the research. It is inferential thinking that makes you guess something based not only on whatever experience or factual knowledge you have about such thing, about also on conclusion that were logically drawn by other research studies. A hypothesis has to be tested through analytical investigation to prove how true or false it is. So, what is the importance of hypothesis? The importance of the hypothesis, it helps to assume the probability of research, failure, and progress. It helps to provide link to the validity and reliability of the research. There are 5 purposes of hypothesis. Some researchers find hypotheses essential because of the following reasons. First, they guide you on which aspect of the research to focus on. Hypotheses guide you in the aspect of which it starts when what you think of the study or the research problem you encounter, then that way, that is your first knowledge of the study. Second, they provide opportunities to prove the relationship between variables. Third, they give the right direction of the research. Fourth, they outline your thoughts on your manner of summarizing the results and of explaining the conclusions. Fifth, they push for an empirical study to prove the existence of relationship of variables and the effects of independent variable on the dependent variable.
The difference between hypothesis and research question. Hypothesis is a statement that expresses a feasible relationship between variable or phenomena based on existing knowledge, theory, or observation, while research question is a question that seeks to explore or explain an aspect of your topic without making any assumption or claims. Both are related to your research, but they are not exactly the same.
Hypothesis versus research question. In an experimental research that takes place in a scientific method, one of your initial acts is formulating these two, research question and hypothesis. Both are related to your research, but they are not exactly the same. Their difference lies in the amount of stock knowledge you have about the focus of your study. If you know much about the variables or have lots of knowledge about other factual data involved in the research through your review of related literature, you can formulate hypotheses or otherwise form research question. At any rate, the purpose of these two forms of inferential thinking is to propose possible or probable answer or solution to the research problem focused on by the study. The results of your research or investigation prove whether the hypotheses are correct incorrect, or partially correct. So move forward to the categories of hypothesis. There are two categories of hypothesis: the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. A null hypothesis symbolized by who, which states the absence of relationship between the independent and dependent variables. It is therefore a statement to disprove the fact that the independent variable, like treatment, intervention, or condition, has an effect on the dependent variable. The opposite of null hypothesis is the alternative hypothesis, symbolized by high. The alternative hypothesis states the relationship between the independent and the dependent variables and the first affects the second one. There are three types of hypotheses. Choosing which type of hypothesis to use depends solely on you, the researcher. It does not mean, however, that choosing one of the following types of hypothesis makes you come out with the best hypothesis, because no type of hypothesis is superior to any hypothesis. The first types of hypothesis: theory-driven versus data-driven hypothesis. A hypothesis that is based on existing theory to explain the relationship of variables and the effects of one variable on the other variables is theory-driven, but if it is based on the findings of previous research, it is a data-driven hypothesis. Second, directional or one-tailed versus non-directional or two-tailed hypothesis. Directional hypothesis state the relationship of two variables as well as of the relationship of these variables. Non-directional hypothesis, on the other hand, state the relationship of variables but not on the direction of the relationship. Third, descriptive versus causal hypothesis. A statement specifying the relationship between two variables due to the influence of something is a descriptive hypothesis due to cause and effect relationship. It is a causal hypothesis through experimental or quasi-experimental research, such as a correlation study, uses causal hypothesis. Non-experimental research uses descriptive hypothesis. So let's move on to the guidelines in formulating hypothesis. The craft in hypothesis formulation requires you think of the following pointers. First, express your hypothesis in a declarative sentence. Support your hypothesis with ideas based on theories, known facts, previous studies, or your own experience and wisdom. Third, establish a logical relationship between the hypothesis and the research problem. Fourth, have your hypothesis predict the nature of relationship between or among variables. Fifth, ascertain the possibilities of having some means of testing, analyzing, and investigating your hypothesis. The last, avoid wordiness by using clear, exact, or specific language in stating the hypothesis.